Aries, let me speak to you the way I would if we were sitting across from one another in a quiet library, surrounded by centuries of old books whose spines are cracked but still holding on, much like you. Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025 may look unremarkable on paper, just a weekday stacked between a Monday you tried to survive and a Wednesday you'll probably forget. But this day carries the weight of a hinge creaking open, the kind of moment that does not shout but hums with a rhythm that your spirit, not your schedule, has already noticed. For weeks now, perhaps even months, you've felt that restlessness beneath your skin. It is not insomnia, not indigestion, not a caffeine overdose though, let's be honest, Aries, your coffee habit has fooled you before. No, this is the fire of anticipation. It is the sense that the ground is moving just enough under your feet to keep you alert, even if you can't yet explain why. Psychologists might call this an anticipatory shift, a subtle way the body registers a new chapter before the conscious mind can write the words. The Buddhists might describe it as karmic seeds breaking through the soil of your life, finally ready to be seen after long stretches of silence. And as someone who has spent decades charting the restless dance between stars and souls, I would say it this way: Aries senses the fire before anyone else smells the smoke. You are the scout in the Zodiac, the one who feels the change first, even if you have to spend weeks convincing everyone else you are not simply being dramatic. Though let's admit, being dramatic is also one of your greatest strengths. After all, who else could make spilling water on a desk feel like an epic battle scene? But this day, this Tuesday, is not about theatrics. It is about recognition. The universe has a strange way of working with Aries. It tests your endurance, asks you to carry loads that no one sees, makes you run while others stroll, and then suddenly places you in front of a door that you never realized you had been pounding on from the other side. That is September 23rd. The door has been pressing back against your fire for a long time, and now, finally, it gives way. Do not expect fireworks, expect the steady exhale you did not realize you were holding. Do not look for applause, look for the quiet confirmation that life is finally meeting you halfway. What makes this moment so significant is not only the astrology, though Mars in a graceful dance with Saturn does suggest purpose aligning with passion, the battle cry softening into a steady drum beat. It is also the psychology of timing. Human beings often crave change and thunderclaps, but the most permanent shifts come like tectonic plates, silently realigning the very ground we walk upon. When you feel a scar that has long been tender begin to soften, or when a conversation lingers with a warmth you cannot explain, that is not just coincidence, it is destiny choosing its moment. For Aries, September 23rd is that moment. And because I know you, Aries, I know you will be tempted to rush it, to force it, to demand proof that the universe is finally delivering after years of waiting. But here is the cosmic joke: the proof is in your stillness. The fire burns best not when you chase, but when you allow. A Buddhist teacher once told me that grace does not come when we scream for it, it comes when we sit still long enough to notice it was always there. So, if your heart catches on Tuesday, if your chest feels like it is expanding without reason, do not dismiss it. That is your signal. That is your yes. So laugh at yourself if you must, Aries. Joke about being impatient, about checking your phone every 5 minutes to see if destiny sent you a text. But know this: September 23rd is not an ordinary Tuesday. It is your turning point hidden in plain sight. And when it arrives, your only task is simple but not easy: trust the fire you feel. Trust that the whisper beneath your ribs is not madness, not caffeine, not coincidence, but the sound of your own life finally answering back. Aries, let's sit with this day for a moment. Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. Why does it matter? To the casual observer it may seem like just another square on the calendar, another day to push through emails, deal with errands, and wonder if that package you ordered will ever arrive. But the cosmos has a peculiar sense of humor, and it adores timing. On this date, Mars, your ruling planet, the raw engine of action, courage, and heat, is forming a rare trine with Saturn, the stern architect of discipline, endurance, and wisdom. If Mars is the match that ignites, Saturn is the hearth that keeps the flame contained so it can actually warm the room. This isn't the fleeting spark of a match that flares out quickly. This is a steady fire, one that builds, one that lasts. Think of it like a battle cry that softens into a steady drum beat. You've been carrying passion, Aries, carrying it with your chest out and your jaw clenched, often feeling like the world dismissed it as noise. But Saturn steps in and says, not noise, structure. Suddenly, your fire doesn't just burn, it builds a house, a road, a foundation. For some of you, this alignment lands in your 5th house, the domain of creativity, romance, and joy. If that's you, prepare for sparks to appear in places you thought were long extinguished. Maybe a project you abandoned because you thought no one cared suddenly springs back to life. Perhaps a romance, rather than being another exhausting chase, arrives like a dance partner who actually knows the steps. The 5th house is playful, theatrical, the place where joy refuses to apologize for itself. And Aries, let's admit, you've been working harder than you've been laughing. September 23rd reminds you that joy is not a luxury. It is fuel. For others, Mars will ignite the 9th house, the realm of philosophy, higher truth, and expansion. In that case, this date is not about play but about perspective. It becomes the moment when you look around and realize the life you've been living is not wide enough to contain your spirit. You might find yourself questioning beliefs you inherited without thought, craving a journey that breaks you out of your loop, or simply asking with a sharper voice, is surviving enough, or am I ready to search for meaning? The 9th house is not small talk, it is the bigger picture, the why behind your actions. If your energy lands here, September 23rd is less a spark and more a compass. Either way, whether in the realm of joy or in the realm of truth, this Tuesday brings you the same underlying message. The fire inside you is not just passion, it is purpose. Passion without purpose is adrenaline, it spikes and vanishes. But passion married with purpose? That's fuel for transformation. Now, let's step away from astrology for a moment, because life is not only written in the stars, it is also written in the small choices and psychological shifts that shape us. Psychologists use the term liminal moment to describe those thresholds in life when you are no longer who you were, but not yet fully who you are becoming. These turning points don't always arrive with fanfare. In fact, they rarely do. They slip in quietly. A conversation that lingers longer than expected. A scar that suddenly doesn't ache anymore. A single decision, picking up a phone, saying yes, or finally saying no, that reroutes the entire trajectory of your life. Aries, you've lived long enough with fire to know this truth: flames don't always roar. Sometimes they flicker. And it is in the flicker that destiny hides. Most people miss these thresholds because they're waiting for neon signs, for thunderclaps, for life to declare itself in grand announcements. But you, Aries, are different. You have lived with the tension of fire long enough to recognize its subtler signals. You know the hum of a spark when it's about to catch. And this Tuesday, it may not come with trumpets, but it will come with clarity. The challenge for you is not whether the shift will arrive, it already has. The challenge is whether you will notice it. Will you pay attention to the flicker in your chest, or will you scroll past it, convincing yourself it was just another Tuesday? It's a little cosmic joke that we humans often look for revolution in fireworks, when the real revolutions begin in the tiniest adjustments. A Buddhist teacher once told me that enlightenment rarely comes with lightning. More often, it feels like realizing you were already awake. September 23rd carries that quality. It doesn't ask you to tear everything down. It asks you to notice the subtle invitation. And here's where I'll add a bit of humor, because Aries, patience isn't exactly your strong suit. You're the sign that hears divine timing and rolls your eyes. You want proof now, not later. If the universe says soon, you translate it as yesterday. But sometimes the real joke is that the shift has already happened while you were pacing impatiently, waiting for it to begin. This Tuesday is exactly that kind of day. It won't crash in loudly, but if you pause for half a breath, you'll realize the ground has already tilted. So why does September 23rd matter? Because it holds the intersection of astrology and psychology, of cosmic timing and human readiness. It is the day when Mars, your fire, meets Saturn, your discipline, and together they carve out a space where your passion is finally taken seriously. It is also the day when the flicker in your chest is no longer just a nervous itch but the doorway to your next chapter. Whether it shows up in love, creativity, philosophy, or simply a moment of stillness that feels unshakably true, this date matters because it whispers, your time has come. And if you're brave enough to notice it, Aries, that whisper might just change everything. Aries, let me level with you in a way that only years of watching the Zodiac dance across history, psychology, and the hidden corners of human behavior allows me to. When I say that you are one of the chosen ones this season, I am not tossing around spiritual buzzwords or trying to inflate your already legendary sense of self-importance. I mean it in the sober way a teacher might lean over a student's desk and whisper, "It's your turn. You have carried weight in silence for too long. You've been the locomotive pulling the train while others enjoyed the scenery from the carriage. You've kept moving when your legs were tired, when your heart was heavy, when nobody clapped for you or even noticed. And here's the great irony, you did it without losing your fire. You tucked it away like a flame under glass, waiting for the moment when life would finally stop asking you to prove yourself and start meeting you halfway. That moment, Aries, is not tucked in some far-off horizon. It is here. The Year of Triumph 2025 is not a distant slogan, it's your present chapter, beginning with this season and, more specifically, with the day that will feel deceptively ordinary until you pause and listen, Tuesday, September 23rd. That is your opening act, the creak of the door, the first inhale before you speak a line you've unknowingly rehearsed for years. And that's the beauty of it. You thought you were stumbling around in the dark, but you were memorizing the script all along. This is not someone else's play. It's not your parents' dream, your boss's plan, or your friend's expectations. This is your own performance, written in your pulse, your breath, your yes. The mistake people often make with Aries is assuming you thrive only on chaos and adrenaline. They forget that your fire is not merely wild, it is sacred. It carries intention, even when you look impulsive. It holds loyalty, even when you storm out. You have been mistaken for reckless, when in truth, you were simply unwilling to sit in a cage that others found comfortable. That is what makes you one of the chosen ones of this cycle. Not because you get a free pass, but because your refusal to stay small has earned you a moment where the universe finally pushes back the curtain and says, "Step into the light." And yes, let's inject a little humor, because you need it. Aries, you are famous for barging through doors before checking if they were even meant for you. Sometimes you've walked into opportunities like a party crasher at a wedding, smiling brightly as though you were on the guest list. This time, however, you don't need to crash anything. The door is already opening, squeaking its invitation. The irony is that the only thing that could stop you now is dragging along the old armor that no longer fits. You don't need it. That dented shield and those heavy boots served you once, but they'll only weigh you down on a stage designed for movement, not survival. Now let us turn to the tarot, which has a knack for speaking truths that astrology occasionally leaves in shadow. The first card stepping forward is the High Priestess. She is the keeper of inner knowing, the one who waits in silence until you are ready to recognize what has always been yours. This Tuesday you may feel yourself pulled toward a memory that stirs your chest, a dream you cannot shake, or perhaps even a person whose presence makes your bones remember something your mind has forgotten. Don't brush it off as random. That's her whisper. She does not shout. She reminds you. She says, "This is yours. It always was." Then comes judgment. And let's be clear, this isn't the finger-wagging kind of judgment that points out flaws or demands perfection. This is the trumpet that wakes you from a sleep you didn't know you were in. It's not asking you to figure everything out overnight. It's asking you to step out of the cage you've already outgrown. The roles you played to keep the peace, the labels you wore because they were handed to you, the masks you carried to be acceptable, they no longer belong. They are costumes from a scene that has ended. You cannot rehearse the next act in the same wardrobe. Judgment tells you to rise, not because you are flawless, but because you are ready. And finally, the Wheel of Fortune rolls onto the stage. This is where things move quickly, often without warning. Once you step forward, the wheel turns, and life rearranges itself to fit the new version of you. Doors you thought were sealed may crack open. Conversations you thought were dead may suddenly revive with new meaning. Opportunities that once ignored you may now orbit around your fire like moths to a flame. The wheel does not wait. It turns. It spins. And when you stand upon it, you ride momentum that is bigger than your willpower, stronger than your control. Taken together, these three cards form a chorus. The High Priestess whispers that you already know. Judgment calls you out of hiding. And the Wheel of Fortune spins you into motion. The shift has already begun, Aries. Not next year, not next season, not when you have more savings, more confidence, or more approval. It has already begun, and the only question left is whether you'll notice. So let me ask you, with the bluntness of someone who has studied both the stars and the human heart for a very long time, are you ready to admit that you are no longer waiting for permission? That this Tuesday is not just another day but the day you claim your own stage? If you can answer yes, not with arrogance but with sincerity, then you are living proof of what it means to be the chosen ones of this season. And if you still hesitate, remember this, the wheel doesn't pause for indecision. It spins, whether you are ready or not. Better to step forward barefoot than to stand still armored and miss your cue. Aries, let us stop for a moment and laugh together, because humor is sometimes the most honest teacher. If there is one thing you and I both know, it is that patience is not exactly your natural gift. You are the sign that hears someone whisper divine timing and immediately begins tapping your foot, staring at the sky as though demanding the universe explain itself. When others are told soon, they nod serenely, maybe brew a cup of tea. When you hear soon, you already have your shoes on and the engine running, ready to go. It is your way of living, bold, fiery, and determined to leap before the stage hands have even set the scene. That impatience, of course, has carried you into victories others only dream of, but it has also led to more than a few crashes, and probably at least one story where you opened the oven before the cake was ready, convinced you could hurry it along by sheer willpower. So, when I tell you that this next shift in your life may not thunder in with lightning bolts, but may instead arrive like a scar softening, or a phone call from someone you did not expect, I can almost hear you groaning. Quiet transformation? Subtle progress? That sounds suspiciously boring to your ears. But here's the irony, the universe is not denying you drama, it is upgrading you to depth. Sometimes the most profound changes are not the fireworks that explode once and leave smoke in the air, but the steady flame that warms the house through the winter. And Aries, you don't need more fireworks. You are the fireworks. What you need now is a lantern, a steady flame that guides, instead of another explosion that dazzles for 5 minutes and disappears. Now, let us come down from the stars and talk about the ground beneath your feet, because true shifts always land in daily life. The first arena is money. Too often, you think of it only in terms of what you don't have, or you let it whip you into a panic that leads to a flurry of half-finished projects. This week, I challenge you to draft a simple 3-month vision, not a spreadsheet full of scarcity and dread, but a map rooted in meaning. Ask yourself, what do I truly need? What do I genuinely love? And where do I want to create more space? When money is treated not as a fear but as a flow, it begins to align itself with clarity. And clarity, Aries, is a form of spiritual strategy. The old Buddhist masters remind us that when the mind is scattered, so is everything else. But when the mind is focused, even a single drop of water becomes an ocean. Now for a love. Nobody doubts your ability to love fiercely. You are the one who charges into relationships like a knight, sword flashing, vowing to protect, to provide, to burn so brightly that the whole world sees your devotion. But ask yourself, how many times have you burned yourself to keep someone else warm? Love should not feel like a one-person bonfire. This time, let it feel like warmth meeting you halfway, like a hearth fire that you and another tend together. Allow your heart to soften. Not because the past did not hurt, but because the past does not get to dictate what is possible in the present. That scar I mentioned earlier, let it be a reminder not of pain, but of survival. And survival, Aries, has always been your specialty. And what about meaning? Work may feel dull or heavy, as though the flame that once lit the way has dimmed. The temptation is to rip everything up, to start over completely, but pause before you torch the whole landscape. Often, we are not lost because we chose the wrong path, but because we silenced the spark inside us that once made the path meaningful. This week, ask yourself, which part of my fire have I neglected? What voice inside me has been waiting for air? Even 5 minutes of honest presence, of reconnecting with what stirs you, can be enough to reignite the flame. Now, let us step into the curious world of numbers, because numerology, like astrology, offers its own language of timing. September 23rd resonates with the numbers 3 and 9. 3 is the spark of creativity, the joy of expression, the energy of beginnings. 9 is wisdom, release, and endings. Together they form a simple yet profound message: let go with courage, so you can begin with truth. If you add them together, 3 and 9 become 12, which reduces again to 3. The universe repeats itself louder this time: speak your truth. Do not water it down. Do not delay it. Your words are the key, and your honesty is the match. And let us not forget the colors of power, subtle yet potent in their ability to shift your state of mind. Crimson red is your natural ally, fueling your fire and grounding your courage. Electric gold brings clarity and a reminder of your worth, shining light on the places where doubt once lingered. On Tuesday, wear them like armor that requires no explanation. You may find that the world responds not to what you say, but to the silent authority of your presence. It is a truth long known by spiritual teachers: vibration speaks louder than words. So yes, Aries, laugh at your impatience, roll your eyes at the idea of quiet transformation, but understand this: the very things you find frustrating may be the gifts you most need. The scar that softens, the flame that steadies, the silence that clarifies, all of these are your true allies now. You don't need to create more noise. You need to honor the shift that is already happening, patiently if possible, humorously if necessary, but most of all with the recognition that this is not about waiting. It is about noticing. Aries, here is where we shift from the noise of life into something quieter, deeper, and far more transformative. Modern culture worships noise, speed, and constant productivity. We live in a world where people brag about how little they sleep, as though exhaustion were a badge of honor. But the truth, and this is where Buddhist wisdom reminds us, is that the greatest movements in life often emerge not from acceleration but from stillness. And let me be clear, this isn't the stillness of giving up or the silence of defeat. It is the stillness of presence, the kind of grounded awareness that whispers to the soul, "You are safe now, you can stop running." For a fire sign like you, Aries, who thrives on action, urgency, and bold leaps, this lesson might feel like a cosmic joke. Patience again? Yes, patience, but with a twist. Stillness is not about doing nothing, it's about letting meaning catch up to your speed. Try the 4-4-4 breath. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, rest for 4. On the surface, it sounds simple, almost too simple for a warrior like you who would rather climb a mountain or conquer a challenge. But that is the beauty of it. The practice isn't about proving anything. It is about reminding your nervous system, and your restless mind, that you do not need to justify your existence every second of the day. The Buddhists have always said that space is necessary for wisdom to enter. And in that pause, grace finds its way to you. You'll notice the difference when you practice it, the jaw unclenches, the chest loosens, the thoughts settle into rhythm. And if you are rolling your eyes because breathing sounds boring, remember this, even the fiercest fire needs oxygen. Without breath, your flame sputters. With breath, your flame becomes steady. Now, let me tell you something clearly, Aries, because clarity is what you crave. September 23rd, 2025 is not an accident. You didn't stumble onto this message the way you stumble into half your adventures, laughing as you go. This is deliberate. You've been preparing for this longer than you realized. All those moments when you felt stuck, restless, misunderstood, they were rehearsal. They were the universe sharpening your instincts for this exact point in time. This Tuesday is not a random dot on the calendar, it is the first crack of light through a door you've been pressing against for years. And yes, this is your year of triumph 2025. Not in the distant future, not when you've perfected yourself, not when you've ticked off every goal. Now, the gift that's arriving may not look the way you imagined, it rarely does. But you will recognize it by the way your chest expands, by the way your inner fire whispers, "Yes, this belongs to me." You don't need to be flawless. You don't need to chase after it. You only need to stay open. Because this shift isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming the clearest version of you, the one who doesn't apologize for existing, the one who trusts that their fire is already enough. So let me turn the question back to you. What are you ready to receive this Tuesday? What burden are you finally willing to set down? What truth are you ready to claim as your own? Mark it, speak it, anchor it. Use the number 888 if you want a symbol. Not as some random figure but as a declaration that you are stepping into flow, into return, into divine timing. That number hums with cycles, with infinite motion, with the reminder that life is not a straight line but a spiral. When you claim it, you aren't just typing digits, you are telling the universe you are ready. Here is the truth, Aries, the one you need to hear most. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly, fiercely, beautifully on time. The year of triumph 2025 doesn't require you to become anyone else, it simply requires you to show up as yourself. And along the way, don't forget to enjoy the life you're fighting so hard to create. Laugh at yourself when impatience makes you silly. Dance when the music finds you. Indulge in joy not as a distraction but as nourishment. Because the real triumph is not just the door that opens, but the way you live once you've walked through it. So, Aries, breathe deeply, claim your moment, and remember, this is your season. If this message stirs something in you, let it move you to action. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Zodiac Talks Tarot, so we can continue this journey together. Your fire was never meant to burn alone, it was meant to inspire, to ignite, and to remind the world that courage and joy belong together.